Welcome to Behind the Warrior, a podcast presented by the EOD Warrior Foundation. This series will focus on resources, interviews, and topics impacting EOD warriors, their families, and the military community at large.
Hello everyone, welcome to Behind the Warrior. I'm your host Maria Shabla, and today we are very excited to be speaking with two former EOD Army techs, Sam Peterson and Wayne Packard. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Maria.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Well, we are very excited to be speaking to the two of you today on ketamine. So I always like to start from the beginning. If each of you could tell us a little bit about yourself and where did you grow up?
Sam, go ahead.
So grew up in 9 Mile Falls, Washington. As soon as I got out of high school, joined the Army to become an EOD tech. Went straight through and made it through school. Thank God. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
Wow! And right out of high school, gosh.
Yeah, definitely got a crash course in becoming an adult very quickly.
So.
And then did 6.5 years as an Army EOD tech. Got my team leader cert, and then directly after that, ended up going into mental health. So got into traumatic brain injury research rather, and that really shifted my focus into outpatient psychiatry, and now into inpatient treatment for veterans who are suffering from traumatic brain injuries, post-traumatic stress disorder, and depression. Because a little known fact, EOD has one of the highest suicide rates of any MOS in the military, and that is primarily due to our continuous exposure to blast overpressure.
Wow. Well, Sam, can you tell us a little bit about the highlights of your career in EOD? And why EOD? I always like to ask that question.
Well, it's not as sexy as some other folks. So basically, I went to the Army recruiting station in Spokane, Washington, after my dad refused to help me pay for college.
Oh no!
And I went in there and I was like, I want to be an airborne ranger. Oh, I want to jump out of planes and shoot people like Call of Duty. And
you sound like a Smurf, by the way. That was pretty impressive.
I do a lot of voices. So, asked. I was like, hey, like if they got a decent signing bonus, I want to go be an airborne ranger. And then I took the ASVAB and scored pretty high on it. And the recruiter at the time was like, I don't think you want to be an airborne ranger. Why don't we look at some videos? And he's like, you could be a counterintelligence guy. Here, look, watch this video. And the counterintel video is a bunch of nerds sitting in a tent. And I was like, I don't want to be a tent nerd. I was like, swipe left on that one. Show me what you got. And he showed me the video with robots and explosions. Sold. Like, let's do it. And just jumped in head first, not knowing a damn thing about it, really.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Sam, Wayne, what about you? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where did you grow up?
Sure. So I'm originally from San Diego. I grew up like on the beach and enjoying going to the desert. After high school, I spent a couple years doing like marble and granite work, which I really, really love doing. And then I joined the Army when I was 21. So I did it a little bit later than Sam, but I joined in 2007. And again, I went straight to EOD school just like he did. And then, let's see, my first deployment I think I had was 2008, something like that. I've had 3 deployments, and I met and married my wife in 2013. We've got 2 great kids.
Aww.
And I love to run. That's something that I'm really passionate about recently. So
very cool. So why EOD, Wayne? And what are some highlights from your career?
Sure. I think initially just because it was something dangerous. I wanted to, I don't know, I just wanted something on the edge, I think. And some highlights, a couple people that I've met that I can honestly call brothers now. So some friendships for sure.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, cool. So we can kind of dive right into the subject. Today we're going to be talking about ketamine. And Sam, I'm going to invite you to kind of tell our listeners who might not be aware, what is ketamine and what is the science behind it?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of start with, why am I talking about this? And, so my experience with ketamine comes from, my time in traumatic brain injury research, helping to put together a protocol that can heal traumatic brain injuries. I also I'm a part owner in a clinic that administers ketamine, a psychiatric clinic in Denver. And one of my programs, inpatient programs, uses ketamine as well to treat traumatic brain injuries and to treat PTSD and depression. So, that being said, that's where I'm coming from. I'm also not a doctor, so please don't construe anything that I'm about to say as medical advice. Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic and an NMDA receptor antagonist. It works on the glutamate system, and it's a very important drug. It's used every single day in bariatric surgery and pediatric surgery. It's also used in battlefield medicine. So if you've got something like a traumatic amputation, which, as EOD techs, we're exposed to fairly often on our deployments, the last thing you want to do for that patient is to, say, lower their heart rate or affect their respiration, which opiates do. So ketamine is an alternative anesthetic measure that can be used on individuals who have either compromised or sensitive respiratory systems, so that you don't kill them by taking away their pain. And recently, within the past 10 to 15 years, we've also found that ketamine is incredibly effective at treating depression, and it's looking very promising that that efficacy for depression may also extend to post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as anxiety. And one of the things that we've seen clinically is that if someone has a traumatic brain injury and they're experiencing things like if they've got a traumatic brain injury and they're experiencing post-concussive migraines, ketamine can be used to downregulate inflammation in the brain and give relief, even though it's a temporary relief from those migraines.
Wow, very interesting. And I guess I'd be curious to ask, what was your first exposure to ketamine?
As a patient. So, I tried it myself. I was very highly depressed and anxious. I was having panic attacks every day back in the latter part of 2015 when I got out of the military. And ketamine was one of the only things that could get the monkey off my back and give me some relief from those symptoms. Because that's the nice thing about it is it's incredibly effective. So, between 70 to 80% of patients respond to ketamine. And when you've been suffering for an extended period of time, it's like all of a sudden, you're just being choked by your symptoms, and it's like getting released from that headlock, and now you can breathe again. So, for me, it was firsthand experience where I really first got to engage with ketamine, and it was a really life-changing experience.
So, for somebody listening who hasn't ever tried ketamine, can you tell us some of the symptoms that you would use ketamine as treatment for? I know you said depression.
Yeah, so depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and traumatic brain injuries are typically what we're used, as well as acute suicidality is another thing that ketamine is used for, actually by the VA. Believe it or not, they're really starting to adopt it. So those are the big things that ketamine is used from a mental health perspective to treat.
Yeah, yeah. And Sam, you actually were on a panel that we held in Colorado Springs earlier this year on removing the stigma. And I do remember, I think it was you who, as you were talking to our audience, kind of you described the symptoms of TBI, I think, because I think there might be some techs that might be having these symptoms that don't know that they're related to a TBI. Can you talk on that?
Yeah, I'm sure Wayne can talk on that too. I mean, the constant brain fog, short-term memory loss, the headaches. If you're having, consistent headaches and migraines, that's a huge warning flag for traumatic brain injury. Also, having the inability to control your mood. So if you're experiencing, maybe you're sitting there talking to your spouse and then all of a sudden they say something or do something that just makes you go red for a second, you can't really explain why, that could be an indication for a traumatic brain injury.
Interesting. Yeah, so let's shift to you, Wayne. I recently saw an article that you were in that you had talked about kind of your journey getting out and, the struggles that you had and how you ended up, your path led you to ketamine. So can you talk to us a little bit about your transition out of the military and ultimately what led you to ketamine?
Sure. So I got out in 2019, like the first couple months of 2019. And my plan was to just take the summer off and go to school, which I did. I took the summer off and then started at the university in that fall semester. But during that time, I was drinking like incredible amounts of alcohol. I was really depressed, but I was also like just unaware of like how those actions were having negative consequences on my life. And I ended up really like my drinking got super bad and I started making really poor financial decisions, and put my family's like financial stability at risk. And decided at that point, like I really had to turn my life around. So I cut drinking out and I took a year off of school. And during that time, my goal was to like try to really just heal myself, which led me to do a little bit of research on alternative options to therapy because, I had I grew up a white person in America. Like, some could argue that I had already a privileged life, but, I grew up with a really abusive father. And my parents split pretty early on, and I had to figure out a lot of like right and wrong situations kind of on my own. And ultimately I would make so many wrong choices. But anyway, jumping back I stopped drinking and then I wanted to find, alternative therapies because the stuff I had tried in the past like was not successful. I would either lie to the therapist or like reschedule sessions. Like I didn't put anything into it. And I decided that this time I was going to try to do things differently. So I also knew that I would need like a little bit of help in order to like really open up, and ketamine assisted therapy was the thing that kept popping up, and I decided to give it a try. And it, like Sam said, it truly was a life-changing experience for me. It was the first time in my life, my first ketamine experience. So I did it through a whole clinic where we had a primary medical doctor who would administer the ketamine. We had a psychiatrist that I spoke to while under the influence. And then we also had a nurse who would monitor me, like, periodically, like checking vitals and stuff. But my first time was, I think we probably went a little overboard on the dosage, but that was just because maybe I was really nervous and getting freaked out. But my first experience was in my entire life at the age of 36, it was the first time I really ever felt peace. Like it was the first time I'd ever felt safe, or peaceful was really the best way to describe it.
Wow.
And that, like, people say seeing things through a certain lens, right? Like you see the world through a rose-colored lens or something like that. But it gave me the ability to now see the world through a lens of peace, which totally changed the way I was able to continue living. So
that is incredible. So you said that they might have gone overboard on the dose, and that you were nervous, probably because you were nervous and scared. So why were you nervous and scared?
So I was worried. I had heard like horror stories about psychedelic experiences in general, where people have to like mindfully remove themselves from situations, or, just a bad trip. But honestly, I was really worried. So I used to have terrible nightmares as a kid related to my dad and him being a werewolf. And I was really terrified of like being under the influence of a psychedelic and having to go through those nightmares again.
Wow.
Was really what held me up initially. So.
Wow, Wayne, that's incredible. So you devoted yourself to try to heal yourself for a year, and I think that's incredible. Was there anything else that you were trying along with the ketamine during that year?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't start with the ketamine. Unfortunately, I tried a few other things. I tried working the VA therapy system. I tried working some medications that the VA gave me, which ultimately at one time made my life way worse. I think the drug I was on was called Effexor. And shortly after starting it, I completely lost control of my own thoughts. Like I was having intense real life, like suicidal ideations consistently, like day after day, just shit was just rolling downhill in my brain. And I at the time didn't feel like I had any control over it.
Wow.
So like in, let's see, we're in 2023. So in like fall of 2022 or 21, it would have been 21. I had like a massive panic attack because of one of the suicidal ideations I had, like just so worried that it would just inadvertently like happen, or like I was really freaked out. But I had a really rough couple months. Tried all sorts of different medications, but was really just struggling with incredible depression, like pretty heavy suicide ideations. And, my wife and I, like we needed help, and that help came from ketamine.
Wow. So I want to ask somebody who's new to ketamine, like how many times do you have to have it done? Like, is it lasting results? Is it temporary results?
Yeah, so my program was, I went 8 weeks at twice a week. On Tuesdays, I would see the psychiatrist while under the influence of ketamine. So we would have just I would have an honest conversation. She would just kind of listen. And then on Thursdays, I would do ketamine by myself, and I would just try to, work on the things that the therapist and I had spoke about, or tried to envision, how I wanted my life to change. I know it sounds like super wonky, but it's, for me personally, I saw everything in colors when I was under ketamine. My closed eye visuals, like if I had open eyes, to describe it would be like you like super drunk eyes, like everything was just double vision and kind of blurry. But I was able to carry like a very coherent conversation. But when I closed my eyes and relaxed into it, then for me personally, like the closed eye visuals and the colors really went off the charts. Like I was able to see these beautiful colors of like purples and blues and pinks, and like associate that color and that feeling that I had to like my family members. And like I felt like a more strengthened bond between them, and like seeing these other dark purple colors that were like my previous battles and understanding. One of the big things that I took away, especially from my first experience, was understanding like the perseverance aspect of my life, like how I've been able to like be pulled in so many different directions, but never actually break. Ketamine really provided me with that perspective again, and that was really helpful.
Wow, that is incredible. Sam, when I was listening to Wayne, I was remembering when I visited your Mindspa that you were at. You had this mural, and it was pictures that I think were AI generated, and it kind of is reminding me of Wayne's experience. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do at Mindspa is try to capture those moments. It's especially with a dissociative anesthetic and at higher doses, it can be really hard to download that experience and hold it in your memory just because of the nature of the drug.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we'll use AI generated art to kind of capture that feeling. So we'll ask our patients like, hey, give me 5 to 7 words to describe how you're feeling right now. And we'll use, the AI platform. We personally use Midjourney. So we'll use Midjourney and we'll make a representation of that person's inner feelings. And it's honestly kind of scary how accurate it is. And then afterwards, like after, let's say, Wayne's sitting there getting his ketamine infusion, he's coming out of it, starting to come back into the room and able to tell us about what he's experienced in that eyes closed portion of his ketamine experience. We're like, hey, again, like give me 5 to 7 words to describe your experience. We put that into Midjourney, and then we give the output of that to the patient so they can see and get a representation of their internal state. And it's really powerful when you have something to take away. You can use something like that as your screensaver, or, like we did, print it out and put it on the wall. So you have something to remind yourself that, hey, even when I'm in my really dark place, that doesn't have to be my everyday, and it doesn't have to be all the time. And there are tools that if I do get stuck in that hole again, I can use these tools to help myself climb out.
Wow. Yeah, I remember because there were like several like pictures, and I think one of them was like a monster, and then it slowly started to morph by the pictures, and then at the end it was like somebody holding a baby, so they were like feeling peaceful and safe, and I was just like, man, that's wild. But sorry, Wayne, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'd love to see what my picture would look like, because the first experience I had, I turned into Laffy Taffy. And I was like this massive, like as big as the galaxy piece of Laffy Taffy. So I'd love to see what that AI picture looks like.
Wow, that is wild. So Wayne, you said it was 8 weeks, twice a week. And when was your last ketamine treatment?
About a year ago. Unfortunately, it's a really high cost. Mm-hmm. It's not something that we could have kept in our budget to keep going. So it's definitely something I want to continue to do, but I just have to be able to make it work financially, or like have it covered some other way. Cause the success I saw was worth every penny, but it's a lot of pennies.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. But I guess the silver lining of that was that it sounded like you were in a really dark place, and that treatment pulled you out of it, like Sam had said.
Yeah. When I started ketamine, it was probably the most depressed I've ever been in my life. I was definitely way down there.
Would you say that it saved your life?
That and stop drinking alcohol, those two things. Yes.
Yeah.
It was I don't want to say like ketamine was the only thing, but it was one of a handful of things. And like, I mean, handful, like just maybe 2 or 3 things, but yeah, it's up there for sure.
Well, Sam, can you talk to that, the cost and insurance coverage?
Yeah. So the reason that it costs so much is because ketamine hydrochloride, like the actual original version of ketamine, was created back in, it was the 70s or 80s. I can't remember exactly when. And basically the patent ran out. So as we moved into, these previous 10 to 15 years where we've started to see ketamine emerge as this really powerful therapy for depression, anxiety, and PTSD, the patent's out. So there's no financial incentive for a drug company to do the research, to get it through phase 3 trials, to get that FDA indication extended to depression, anxiety, and PTSD. So, but that doesn't mean there's not hope. So there are VAs around the country that have started their own ketamine programs, which is really, really awesome. I mean, typically, the VA guidance is that you have to fail 3 antidepressant medications to qualify for ketamine treatment. I think that's a little high personally, but that's just...
Yeah, well, especially if you have a reaction like Wayne had to his medicine. I mean, it's insane.
One of the side effects for some selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors is increased suicidality.
Oh, my God.
So, I mean, it's just one of these things, like when it comes to ketamine, it's like, why don't we just use the most effective thing first? Like, we're supposed to go least invasive to most invasive in medicine.
Yeah.
I would postulate that a less invasive treatment would be an intravenous infusion with a half-life of around 30 minutes versus taking that pill bottle and taking 1 to 2 doses of an antidepressant medication every day for 10 weeks until, it starts to become effective. That seems to me, I'm no doctor here, but simple math says that one of those is more invasive than the other. And if we can move towards something that is less invasive and more effective, common sense might dictate that we should do that. But to get to the kind of core of the issue, the cost, there's also the S-ketamine route. So Johnson & Johnson, saw the depression, saw that ketamine was, useful for depression, and they wanted to capitalize on it. So they created S-ketamine. So ketamine hydrochloride is a mixture of 2 ions, and one of those ions is the S ion, the negative ion in that mixture. And they found a way to separate it, and they stuck it into a nasal spray, patented that process, and it is on the market as S-ketamine. So that is available very widely. I mean, just about every psychiatric clinic that does ketamine, I would say probably, let me correct myself there, I'd say probably about 75% of psychiatric clinics that do ketamine also provide S-ketamine in that nasal spray form.
I have never heard that before.
Here to learn some stuff.
Is it the same or different? I mean, it can't be the same as an IV infusion, but...
No, it's not. So the effects are very, very similar. There is still that dissociative aspect of it. The issue that I have with it, and the companies that I'm involved have with S-ketamine, is the method of administration primarily. So if you were to take ketamine, like let's say off the street, intranasally, so you're doing a line of ketamine, or you're taking the S-ketamine because it's the same pathway. One, the bioavailability is quite a bit less going through this pathway versus an injection, but also you're also getting the entire dose to the brain at once, and that's cool if you're used to it, but it's a very, very rapid onset and powerful dissociative effect. The reason that we use IV, and the reason that I'm much more of a fan of IV, and I think most physicians can get on board with this, is that with IVs, I've got a gas pedal and I've got a brake. So if, Wayne's in the chair and he's not responding to the ketamine dose, myself as the physician will have the ability to turn that drip rate up or add more. On the opposite side, just like you said, Wayne, the first time you did it, that it seemed like you got a hefty dose, right out of the gate. If that becomes too much for the patient, I can just stop the drip. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that gives the clinician a much greater aspect of control of that experience. Because if let's say you go a little too hard and someone gets really nauseous, which is a side effect of ketamine, you can experience some serious nausea. So you're not supposed to eat or drink beforehand. That can really mess up your experience, and it can easily turn it into one of those, possibly more negative oriented or challenging experiences. And that's the opposite of what we're trying to do therapeutically with that drug.
And that's what made Wayne nervous, because he was nervous that would happen. Interesting. So I'm starting to get it. So also I was thinking, it's still controversial to some people. And I think I had heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, that ketamine was a street drug. Is that? Yeah. So I didn't even know that. I really came into the foundation with zero knowledge of ketamine. So can you talk to us about why you think it's still controversial, apart from the fact that it's illegally used on the streets?
It's that damn dare lion. Hey, the ketamine is a drug that does have the potential to be abused. There is a euphoric aspect to this, especially when it's done recreationally. I do want to caveat that by saying there is exactly zero instances of a clinical administration of ketamine causing a ketamine addiction. So I think the reason people get their hackles up is because they're afraid, I'm going to go into a clinic. This thing is a psychedelic. It's not technically a psychedelic. It has psychedelic properties, but it's a psychedelic. I might get addicted to it and I'm going to feel like I'm dying.
Yeah.
And those are valid fears based on the to be quite honest, the propaganda that we've had shoveled down our throat. At the end of the day, one of the things that really changed my mind about it, let's take this on the international stage for a second. Do you know what the World Health Organization says about ketamine?
No.
It is listed as an essential medicine and one of the most prolific medical discoveries of a drug in our generation. Wow. Because of how many uses it has. So is there potential for abuse in a setting outside of a controlled clinical environment? Yes, there is. Guess what else has that? Opiates, or any other drug that's used that has a euphoric effect. If you're looking to, disassociate from your current environment because of what's going on to you, and you're using this drug as an escape and you have access to it whenever you want, that could be a problem. However, if you're using that substance to go into a clinical setting, be evaluated for the safety and efficacy of your body interacting with that drug by a licensed professional, and then having that interaction monitored, there are few safer drugs in the world than ketamine. And only a small caveat to that, ketamine does have serious reactions with benzodiazepines. So, if you're taking a bar of Xanax and then using ketamine recreationally, that's a really good way to make that your last nap.
Wow.
And that's something that, us in the clinical setting are very, very aware of. And we make sure that our patients aren't doing that and that they understand the dangers. And, it just comes down to, the dose makes the poison, and there's something to be said for, there's a lot to be said for, safe, responsible, and clinically monitored administration.
So we talked about it in a roundabout way, but Wayne, can you tell us about how much was each session?
Oh, sure. So the whole system, all 8 weeks, was $3,000.
Okay.
So I don't know what that comes out to per session, but yeah, that was total cost.
$3,000.
Total cost for like the clinic and the ketamine, and then the therapist was, well, I don't know, another $200-300, like each session. So, another $1,600, so maybe $4,500 altogether.
Okay, I've got my calendar. $4,500 divided by 16, so about $281 per session. It sounds like. Interesting. Okay. I guess, Sam, you worked for Mindspa, and now you're working with Patriot PowerUp. Can you tell our listeners about Mindspa and about your new position?
Yeah. So, I'm one of the founders of Mindspa. In that business, there are 3 of us, 1 psychiatrist, a clinical psychologist, and myself. I got an opportunity. Basically, what we saw in Mindspa, because at Mindspa we use a combination of ketamine infusion therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and deep transcranial magnetic stimulation. The reason we do that is because ketamine alone is not enough to heal the brain. Ketamine provides you space. It is a bridging therapy. We want to take you out of that hole, put you on solid ground, and now we've got a chance for the regenerative medicine aspect of the hyperbaric oxygen therapy and the rewiring effect of the prefrontal cortex from the transcranial magnetic stimulation to make those more permanent changes in the brain, especially when we're coupling that with responsible medication management that's informed by pharmacogenetic testing and talk therapy. So when you put all these things together, you can not only provide someone with very rapid relief from their symptoms, but you can begin to heal and rewire the brain simultaneously so that by the time they're done with our comprehensive treatment protocol, they are not, they have a dimmer switch for their symptoms. They're not experiencing the same magnitude of symptoms. And that, tends to last for a very long time, especially when you use them all together. So the reason that I switched over from running Mindspa day to day to the Patriot PowerUp program is, my whole goal with all this stuff is making sure that our people are taken care of, making sure that EOD techs like myself and Wayne are not getting stuck in that hole. Because I had a mentor of mine, an EOD tech, right when I was getting out. I was the last guy to talk to him at the unit, and on Memorial Day, walked out into his backyard and shot himself in the head with his 3-year-old kid in the house. And my whole goal with all of this is just to change the standard of care for all of us. We shouldn't have to pay out of pocket for this stuff. These are injuries that were sustained through combat from us going over and serving our country. Like I hate the word entitlement, but like people who do that deserve to have their shit fixed. Just to put it very plainly. So Mindspa is in network with the VA. And what the VA was doing is they were sending us guys, just like me and Wayne, who are super depressed. They've got a traumatic brain injury. They've got PTSD. And they were saying, all right, cool, you can only do talk therapy. And it just broke my heart to, even in a space that I helped co-create, I'm watching, my comrades walk past the thing that can help them, like that can heal their brain, that can get them the relief that they're seeking, and walking into talk therapy. Now we have great we have great therapists at Mindspa, and they're still getting a lot of work done. But it's like, man, you want to build a house with hammer and nails, or you want to use some fucking power tools? And I got the opportunity to take that model and bring it to a program that already had a VA contract, but the contract is under residential treatment. So it basically came down to the way that our treatments are billed at Patriot PowerUp. It allows me to put as much as much effective treatment into this program, because we're only billing for one code, this residential treatment center code. So it allows us to just really pack everything we need to heal the brain into one cohesive treatment protocol that the VA is paying for. And that allows us to collect the data on both sides to really show like, yeah, we are helping these guys get better. And then I'm going to take that data and, use it, maybe not weaponize is probably not the right term, but
no, that's not the right term at all.
I was fighting with the VA this morning about a case, so I'm a little gird up. But yeah.
Well, you are clearly passionate, Sam.
I'm super passionate. I'm super passionate. That's usually people's way of telling you to calm the hell down. So yeah, just to show those outcomes, to show them without a shadow of a doubt, and to prove that this set of treatments is how we should be treating these ailments without a doubt. So, it's about access to care, it's about data, and at the end of the day, it's about making sure that we don't keep losing awesome people to invisible wounds that we actually know how to heal.
Wow, Sam, that's incredible. So just briefly, can you describe the program itself?
Yeah, so kitty cat.
Wayne, what was that?
That was a cat.
Awesome.
So Patriot PowerUp is an inpatient residential treatment program in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We are a part of the VA Community Care Network. We are in network with Tri-West, so that's anyone who has a home VA on the western side of the United States can access our program. So if you've got a home VA in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, California, Arizona, New Mexico, or Texas, you can access our program. We just started it a couple months ago, so we're planning to expand to the rest of the country. We're gathering the data and getting more people in as fast as we can, so we can open this up to more people. But in that program, you're staying in a nice refurbished home that just got done being refurbished, and you're getting access to these treatment protocols. So you're getting access to the ketamine, the hyperbaric, the transcranial magnetic stimulation, along with intensive therapy. So that, Wayne, like what you went through at the clinic that you went to, that's built in to our program. That ketamine assisted psychotherapy is built. It is part of the DNA of our program. And we're also very targeted on our nutrition, fitness, and our psychoeducation. So we're teaching our residents how to fish here. We're giving their body everything it needs to heal itself, and their brain for that matter as well, to heal itself. And we're helping to build those atomic habits. So as soon as they walk out the front door for the last time, we want to make a scenario where they never have to come back.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. That is so great.
And right now we're open to GWAT vets. So Global War on Terror, pretty much our kind of age limit right now is from 22 to 45.
Wow. Well, that's a good point. The eligibility criteria.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, it's a starting point. I want it to be available to everybody, but we have to start somewhere. And we're keeping our parameters just tight. So we can make sure that our data's tight.
So Sam, anybody that's listening, that's like, I need this, how can they get connected, and what's the application process like?
Yeah. So our program can be accessed through VA Community Care. So that means that your VA provider has to put in a referral to our program. Depending on your VA, that can be easy. Some VAs make it really hard. Mm-hmm. But my whole job is to help shepherd individuals through that process. So all they need to do is go to their provider and say, hey, I'm hurting, I need inpatient treatment, and give them the name Intercept. That's the company that the program is under. and then our NPI number, which is 10030866653, and I can, we can put that in the notes.
Okay. And if there's anybody listening that just wanted to talk to you about it, is that an option?
Yeah.
Are you willing to talk to people?
Yeah, just patriotpowerup.com. If you reach out to us through our website, happy to talk to you. You can also catch me on my cell phone. This is probably one of the last podcasts I do this where I give out my cell phone number, but
yay, we're so lucky.
509-385-4800. So,
Awesome.
Feel free to drop me a line, especially if you're an EOD tech and you're suffering from this stuff. My entire career and the rest of my life is dedicated to making sure that you don't have to feel the way you're feeling right now.
Wow, that's a powerful message. Wayne?
To kind of piggyback off what Sam is saying, to help people feel better, so we as service members don't have to keep feeling this way. Most of the big runs that I have planned for next calendar year, I'm going to be doing a lot of fundraising, and a good portion of that is going to be going to the EOD Warrior Foundation to help kid soldiers into programs and stuff like this. So,
man, Wayne, that is awesome.
Thank
you so much. And so, Wayne, what are your thoughts on Sam's program, Patriot PowerUp? Would you be interested in something like that?
Oh yeah, Sam and I have talked extensively about ways to get me out there, but unfortunately my VA home base is not in Tri-Care West, on the East Coast. So my community care program doesn't unfortunately extend that far.
So Sam, hurry up and do the work so you can get out to the other states, right?
Thanks, Maria. I definitely need more motivation to work harder.
Your motivation is Wayne. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
As soon as
Wayne,
possible. As soon as humanly possible.
Yes. I have faith in you, Sam. You've got the fire. So,
burn it down.
I wanted to end this. Wayne, you're currently pursuing a degree in soil science and plan to work in community-supported agriculture, which sounds incredibly interesting to me. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So originally I wanted to do, well, to be totally honest, I want to grow the best possible cannabis that I can.
Oh my gosh.
And provide that to service members as a form of medication.
Interesting.
So that's why soil science, so that I can grow the best weed. But the other aspect is like a sustainable food system program, and specifically the community supported agriculture. So the concept behind that is, pretty simple. Small farm also has a small farm stand attached to it. So instead of someone in their community going to a grocery store or a Safeway, they can just go to this person's farm stand and buy straight from them. So it's kind of taken some grocery stores out of it. But it's like a subscription type deal. So you pay for the whole growing season, from early spring to late fall. And then you just pay just that time, so you're not spending money outside of that. But I would also really love to have, on a few acres of land would be a place for veterans specifically to come and grow their own food. So I've found a lot of like just peace and really like an ability to just slow down, like with having my hands in the dirt and doing manual things. And I feel like it would be therapeutic to a lot of people to have the ability and a place for them to grow their own fruits and vegetables, or to grow their own cannabis if they choose to. But then also like have it be a community center where events could happen. So
that is so awesome. Well, and you're about to take a final and have a nice little break for the holidays. So.
Yeah, I've got one more final next Thursday, and then I'm off for the winter. So
Well, good luck. Yeah, I'm so excited for that. So I really wish you both the best of luck in your pursuits, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk about ketamine. I've learned a lot myself in this interview. Any final words?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thanks for having both of us. Yeah, I mean, my last words to to the audience, I really want to touch on this. It's a stigma point that I hear all the time. Mm-hmm. I don't want to take resources away from someone else who might need them more. I hear that at least once a week. And
I know.
and here's what I have to say to that is hey guys, if you're out there and you're suffering, it's not just about you. It's about your entire family. You owe it to the people around you to be the best version of yourself. And right now, your symptoms and your injuries are getting in the way of that. So it's not just about you. It's about everyone else. So do yourself, your wife, and your children and your friends a favor and get some damn help. And even if it's not with our program, like there are a shit ton of other great vets doing great things around the country. And even if you can't get into our program, like hit me up. We will find something for you. And you don't have to feel this way all the time. You don't have to deal with these TBI symptoms until you die of dementia. We have treatments, we have the technology, and we can fix them. So if you're hurting, reach out. You owe it to everybody else.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Sam.
The only thing I would add to that is put down the alcohol. Stop drinking. It's not healthy. It's not the right place. It is just poison. Yeah, I found a lot of purpose. Like getting out, I totally felt lost. Like I had no direction, no clue what the hell I was going to do. And I was truly suffering with that. And another podcast I was listening to, one of their speakers who was a recovering alcoholic said, I go out to the trail and I run and I suffer out there so that way I don't have to suffer at home. And like that incredibly resonated with me. So I've been running my butt off. I signed up for my first 100-mile race next year.
Holy cow.
Like, I'm going out there. I hated running in the Army, and now it's something that like truly feeds me. So without putting the bottle down, without dropping alcohol, I could never be as successful as I am with just that aspect. So my only thing would be just stop drinking. And yeah, like Sam said, ask for help. That was really challenging, and it didn't work for me the first time. I had to ask for a second time, and I feel like even a third or fourth time. But just ask.
Wow, guys, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that, Wayne. I talked over you. I'm sorry.
To say that you're not okay. Like, just even if you have to first start by saying those things to yourself, like just admit to yourself that you're not okay is a good step to getting help.
That is great advice. Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much. And we're going to end our podcast like we always do with a couple of your favorite things. So I'll start with Sam. Sam, what is your favorite thing to do in your free time?
Other than work?
Yeah, other than work.
Or
network.
That's just working with lubrication. So yeah, two of my favorite things. I love playing paintball. I love playing like competitive paintball.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's just something about hunting humans. I don't know.
Ew. Gross.
For any of the 18 series guys or the Navy SEALs listening, they're like, hell yeah. Yeah, so I love playing paintball. It's so much fun. I like it's one of the only things, like, because it does actually hurt, that it can kind of get your adrenaline almost up to that level that you can experience in combat, but without, all the other bad stuff. That and snowboarding. Yeah, it's the flow state. The flow state is where the peace is at for sure for me. So I love strapping a piece of wood to my feet and going down a mountain at like 50 miles an hour. That is my jam.
Wow. It's pretty intense. Doesn't
I'm
surprise
pretty,
me.
I'm pretty intense.
I've noticed. Wayne, I guess, what is your favorite, like plant? Oh wait, I think I know the answer to that one already.
I think he answered that question already.
You know, it's so funny you bring that up. That was actually a college presentation I had to do on Tuesday as part of my botany class. Was my favorite plant, and I chose the cannabis plant. Yeah,
So
because
sativa or indica?
here's a stat. No, there's really no difference. But did you know that in terms of per acre per year, hemp cannabis, like grown specifically for a fiber, can produce like 63% more cellulose than the same acreage in the same year as any tree does. Like we could get so much more out of that plant in order to make papers, to make clothes, to make blankets, like, 63% more than an average acre of trees. That's a lot of extra material.
Wow, interesting. Very interesting. Okay, Sam, what's your favorite food, meal, or type?
I'm a steak and potatoes guy. Like a really good, like a really good bone out ribeye is my jam.
Do you cook them yourself?
Meat. Oh yeah.
What?
Me and my grill. We can cook better than just about any steakhouse.
Wow. What kind of marinades do you use?
I'm a big fan of. I do a combo of McCormick's, Cajun, and a little bit of cayenne pepper.
Oh, that sounds good.
Oh, it's fantastic. You're making me hungry. I'm gonna have to go grill a steak for lunch.
It is lunchtime. Okay, Wayne, we'll ask you, what's your favorite type of music to listen to? Do you listen to music when you run?
Actually, I do not listen to music when I run.
Interesting.
I talk to myself a lot whenever. That's when I have my hard conversations. Like if I have a bad day or I had a terrible interaction with one of my kids, like that is my focus on my next run. But music, it's been so different. I grew up loving Metallica. That was my favorite band. I've seen them like 3 or 4 times. But I'm totally into like Americana and bluegrass right now. My favorite band at the moment is probably the Red Clay Strays.
Red Clay Strays. I haven't heard of them.
No, not a lot of people have, but they're pretty damn good.
We'll have to include like a link or something.
Sure, yeah. Or Pony Bradshaw. Pony Bradshaw is really good.
Sam, what's your favorite kind of music?
Wayne, I think there's a connection to this bluegrass and the green grass that you were talking about. I am an electronic dance music guy, so Boots and Cats.
Oh, that's cool. Cool. Well, you guys, it's been super awesome hanging out and learning so much about ketamine. And I hope you guys have a great weekend and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to our Behind the Warrior podcast, brought to you by the EOD Warrior Foundation. The EOD Warrior Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization serving the EOD community by providing financial assistance, scholarships, and providing hope and wellness resources for the active duty, reserve, National Guard, retired, and veteran EOD communities and their families. We also honor our fallen and wounded EOD technicians by maintaining the EOD Memorial and Remembrance Garden. We do all this through the generosity of individual and corporate donors and sponsors. If you would like to assist the foundation or support our Behind the Warrior podcast, click the link on our webpage at eodwarriorfoundation.org or contact us at info@eodwarriorfoundation.org. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell a friend. The various opinions, beliefs, and viewpoints expressed by guests, contributors, and participants of the Behind the Warrior podcast are their own and are intended for informational purposes only. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions, beliefs, viewpoints, or policies of the EOD Warrior Foundation or its employees and volunteers.